Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning, good morning. Love the conversation. Don't want it to end. Don't want to be the one to end it. We'll have a chance here in just a moment to catch up with folks. Good morning. Nice to see you. Hope you're well. We are plowing through summer. Wow. How many have school start in a week or less? Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. Our hearts are with you. Teachers, students, all of you alike. Crazy. But this is the pattern of things. We'll be talking about patterns and stages and things like that this morning. If you've got one of these on your way in, if you're a normal church person, you take the bulletin and you say thank you, and then you never look at it again, and I get it. Because if I was you, I'd do the same thing. But there are some valuable things on here, like the branch students gathering happening right afterwards. If you didn't sign your student up for that, just see Mike or Elizabeth or CJ or Janelle I saw here, and the Verkikes are here as well. Ask any of them. There's a barbecue coming up a month from now. September 22 does feel like an eternity. It's not. It'll be here in a real quick hot second. The Grushkas are going to host us at their house. Branch Kids is back. We're now in August, right? The second weekend of August, so that is happening. I'll say more about that when we release those kiddos. And then the other announcement I have is from Mark and Heather Carroll, and they are traveling the next couple of weeks, and they wanted to still make sure that they got this announcement out to you. So they gave one of their kids their phone and said, hit record. And this is what happened.
All right, we are wanting to share with you guys a little bit about something that Mark and I are planning to do this fall. We would like to host a discussion group based on the Bema Discipleship podcast. And our goal is to start that this September, September 8th. The first time we meet will be at our house at 6. And yeah, just a goal of just trying to listen to the podcast ahead of time and have some time to talk about what it teaches. If this is something you think you might be interested in, the session 1, the first 2 episodes of session 1 are really more not teachings, but what the podcast is about. And so we'd encourage you to take a listen to that. And then, maybe that will give you a feel for if this is something that you'd be interested in joining us with.
Yeah, we have found that this podcast is super helpful. It's looking at the Bible from a non-Western perspective. And so we've really enjoyed it, learned a lot, and seen the Bible in a new and different way because of it. So we hope you take a listen and that you'll join us in September.
Again, it's September 8th at 6 o'clock at our house. If you have any questions, you can email or text Mark and I. And I think we'll have a QR code that you can click on to connect you to the podcast, so you can take a look at that as well. All right, thanks.
Amazing. I at an earlier time in my life as a pastor would never have showed that video. But what I've learned over the years is that showing videos like that is actually really important, because it just helps us remember how human we are and how things don't always go maybe the way that you thought they would. And that's just part of the journey. And doing that together and being open to the whole experience of being human is what this thing is about. So thanks to Mark and Heather. If you couldn't, it was hard to hear maybe, so let me just reiterate the key points. They are hosting a group at their home every second and fourth Sunday. It's going to discuss a podcast. That's what the QR code in your bulletin points you to. I think if you go to this, you will learn something, or you will be challenged to think about maybe the Bible in new ways. That's what this podcast aim is, and as you heard, it's been really helpful to Mark and Heather. The other thing, though, and I would suggest just as importantly, is that if you're able to go, you'll connect with people. You'll have a chance to be with some folks with some regularity and build some relationships. And so that starts September 8th, coming up here again in a real quick second. All right. Those are the announcements this morning. We were greeting each other, but why don't we move back into that again? Find somebody maybe you hadn't talked to yet this morning. Say hello, greet them, maybe share something that's happened this summer, good, bad, or otherwise, and then we'll continue with worship together in just a minute. All right. All right, folks, how about if we begin to wrap up those conversations? You can have a seat, or you can stand. You may not. We're flexible here. We'll release Branch Kids here in a moment, but before we do, I want to ask for some volunteers. Our opening liturgy this morning involves reading. You might want to hold before you don't even know what you're doing yet, but I love you're eager. I'll just give it to you, yeah. You can do this one. You can start us off. So it's just a fairly short liturgy, and I'm looking for 5 readers, and then we're going to read the 6th small section together. So I have 1. I need 4 more. Good news, I'm not even going to make you use a microphone today, because the words will be on the screen so they'll be able to track you enough to follow along. And your voice can serve as your microphone. Thanks, Katie. This is number 2. Elliot, you want to read? Good, buddy. Yeah? Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Number 3.
Yeah. Did I give you? Yeah, 4. Sorry, you're 4. I have 3 in this hand. Who would be willing to read? Joan, thank you. And then one more. You know, I can wait you all out. This does not bother me at all. The awkwardness does not bother me one bit. Thanks, Joan. Okay. So, we'll just bounce around the room. Mike is going to have the words up on the screen here, just so you can read along in case it is maybe a little hard to hear the person. I think. Mike, can you? Oh, thank you so much, Teddy. So let's, who's first? Eamon. And then the last section, you'll see it says all, and it's bolded. That's for all of us to read together.
Teach me your ways, that I may come down from my heights and be open to the same Spirit, who moved over the face of waters in the first day of creation, and moves also over the chaos of this time to fashion a day like this, a world like ours, a life like mine, a kingdom acting as leaven in the bread of earth.
Thank you. Who is second? Go ahead, Katie.
And make me aware of the miracles of life, of warm and cold, of starkness and order, of screaming wind and impenetrable silences, and of the unfathomable mystery of amazing grace in which I have found.
Thank you. Who is third? Good job, Elliot. One more. Joyce, do you have this one? Are you able to read it? Yeah. Joyce, are you able to read this one? The one that has, there, Dale will help you. Beautiful. Thank you. And then this one we're going to read together. Teach me your ways, Lord, so that my heart is flooded with your mercy, emptying it of what is opposed to you, so that it beats more in rhythm with your heart. Amen. We're going to come back to a song at the end of the morning, which we'll just hear. We won't sing together, but it is that same line of teaching me your ways. And that's I think, a really good posture to be in together whenever we share this space with each other. That humility, that openness, that curiosity, that's what we try to hold together with each other. So thanks for entering into that. All right, I think Chris is taking Branch Kids, and Lindsay is willing to and is ready to take the little ones into nursery. So if you're doing that, off you go. Cheerio. And we're in this series in which we're sharing stories. That's what we've been doing the last month, at least, by my memory. And we're inviting you to not only listen to the stories of others, but to consider your own story. And today we're going to be thinking about the way in which every one of our stories involves growth and development. These are normal parts of the human experience, to grow and to change. And in fact, I thought I might start by just asking you to share and to think for a moment about examples of human development. So what are some of the stages that we all kind of recognize are part of, again, the human journey? Yeah. What's that? Walking, yes. So, right, little ones learning to walk. Very good. What else? Object permanence. Ooh, so fancy. Yes. You learn that something is not gone just because you can't see it. Very important developmental stage. Good. What else? Self-identification. Okay. Knowing yourself. Absolutely. Good. Language development. You guys are like deep in the weeds here, which I love. I was thinking a little higher level, but let's keep it going. Yeah. Potty training. That's a different kind of level. Yeah. Well, what What a glorious phase to move beyond. Would you not agree? Yes. Concrete thinking. Mm-hmm.
Adulthood.
Thank you. Yeah, adulthood, and prior to that, we might talk about adolescence, right? We have childhood, we have infancy. So on a broad, kind of high level, we have these categories that recognize, obviously, that we move through stages, you could say. That would be one word to think about it. And this is so obvious that we use these words really without even thinking much about them. Middle age, midlife crisis, right? Retirement. So it's interesting that we have these very well-known categories for our physical development, our emotional development. I'm not sure we have quite the same categories when it comes to our spiritual development. And yet, I think you would have to say that it's quite normal for human beings to move through stages spiritually. In fact, look at this passage from 1 Corinthians. This is chapter 3. Paul's writing to a group of new Christians, as really all of them were at this time. Christianity itself was new. He says to these new Christians, "Dear brothers and sisters, when I was with you, I couldn't talk to you as I would to spiritual people. I had to talk as though you belonged to this world, or as though you were infants in Christ." It's an interesting expression. And then he carries that metaphor. I had to feed you with milk, not with solid food, because you weren't ready for anything stronger, and you still aren't ready. And then he goes on from there. It's just a recognition that we have these chapters or stages in our spiritual development. I didn't grow up, though, really thinking about that or being taught that. For me, it was like unsaved and saved. And those were the categories. And no, I'm not blaming anyone. I just happened to grow up in a space where we didn't then talk about, well, what comes after all of that? Other than I knew I was supposed to read the Bible every day and have, devotional, but that was more practices and less about these are probably some stages that you're going to move through. I don't know what you experienced, if you grew up with some language around spiritual development, but I didn't. And so a few years ago when I encountered Brian McLaren's book, Faith After Doubt, have you heard of this book? It doesn't sound in its title, Faith After Doubt, like a book about spiritual development, but it is, because McLaren says that the thing that moves us from stage to stage is doubt. Doubt in its many forms. It's an interesting idea, and one I think has a fair amount of merit to it. But he lays out those 4 stages down at the bottom: simplicity, complexity, perplexity, and harmony. And I'll say more about that in a second. Hold on, Chris, hold on. Simplicity, this is where he says we all have to start when it comes to our faith or a sense of our spiritual selves. We have to start with the simple. And he says this phase is often dualistic. It's a fancy word of saying everything gets divided into 2s: good, bad, right, wrong, evil, holy, etc. And this is kind of what happens in this stage of simplicity. And he says again, we need it to start there. Just like you cannot teach a first grader calculus, okay, maybe you can. I have a math teacher disagreeing with me. We'll talk later. I'm curious about that. Generally, I think you start with counting, and then maybe addition and subtraction, and then we move on, right? We have to start with simplicity. Good, bad, clear distinctions. But eventually we grow up to a place where we learn that it isn't always quite so simple, right? The bad people, whoever our group labels as bad, we maybe encounter one of them and we find that they're actually quite good. Or the people in our in-group, some of them maybe are not very good, or not as good as maybe they should be. And these sorts of things can really kind of rattle us. We realize the world is complex. thing about complexity, what we try to do there is we try to solve the complexity. So we read that in the Bible that God kind of seems this way in this passage, but this way in this passage, and it's complex at best, confusing as well, right? And if we're in this stage of complexity, what we do is we try to figure out how to solve that. How do we solve the tension and the complexity? This is not bad either. But, and I'm like just flying through these stages here, but what often happens is that we come up against a complexity that is not easily solved. McLaren says often this is in the form of suffering. You did everything right, and you still cannot get a job in the field that you've been working for years. Or the relationship that matters to you most falls apart. Or you lose someone you love tragically. When you run into these things, and others, you face perplexity. And he says if you can stay there long enough with whatever openness you can muster, then you might be able to move into harmony, which is a stage of humility and unity. You can YouTube McLaren Faith After Doubt if you want more on this. There's some easy stuff to find, podcasts to find if you want to go more into this or get the book. But I'm going to end with this little phrase here that he talks about of expand and include, because he says, here's the problem. Anytime you talk about stages of faith, you think, oh, you're telling me how I get from A to B. That the faith journey is a straight line. And he says, it is not that. No. Maybe a better metaphor would be to think about a tree. That in your first beginning of faith, whenever that was, as a child or an adult, you had that first ring, the stem coming out from a seed. And after your first winter, you didn't do away with that ring. You included it and expanded beyond it, right? And then another season, and you didn't do away with or get rid of or disparage those previous. You included them and expanded, and include and expand, and include and expand. He says this is maybe a more helpful way to think about our spiritual journey. So when I look back on my stage of simplicity, for example, I could disparage it and say, how was I so naive? Or those people who told me that everything was black and white, how could they mislead me? I could be angry, bitter, resentful, or just, again, disparaging of it. He says, maybe we should hold those things with gratitude where we can and when we can, and see them as part of our story, right? I'm sharing all of this because I want to give you a couple of minutes to think about your rings, your tree, your journey. And to just consider for a moment, like what has maybe you might want to think about one ring or one stage or one phase or one chapter, use whatever word you want, of your journey. And just take a couple of moments here to reflect on it. Maybe it's your childhood, your adolescence, what you experienced in your kind of young adult college age years, what you've experienced recently. Just consider this for a moment and reflect on it. Because I don't think we do this often. I don't think we give ourselves space to think about and to include what has come before us. We're always looking to move on and to move up, even in our spiritual journeys. So let's just take a moment to pause. If you did get a bulletin, there is a tree on there, and you might even want to draw or doodle or sketch. The art cart's in the back. You can grab some materials if you want. And you can keep kind of considering this as we go along. But I'm just going to take about 2 minutes here to give you a chance to reflect on maybe one part of your journey and to ask yourself, what might I be grateful for from that time? what came to my mind was I was maybe 13 or so and under, that part of my growing up, 13 and younger. I learned that group of people that were my faith community loved to sing. I bet we sang 10 songs a Sunday. And it was like 30 people in a house, so it wasn't like this grand sort of thing, but, I learned to sing there. I discovered how valuable music was to me in connecting to God. So I was just thinking about that right now. Lots of other things I've let go of from that time in my life, but some things were a real gift. Anybody else have anything come to mind from a phase or a stage of their journey? Joan had an exchange student live with her at 16, you said, right? And she asked you some questions about your faith that really made you have to think about it in maybe a way you hadn't before, at a depth you hadn't before. Yeah, that's great, Katie.
I was involved in a pretty in-depth Bible study for like 10 years, and it was a stage of simplicity, but kind of what you said, what I carried with me is a deep knowledge of the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Katie, just for those online, Katie was talking about a 10-year Bible study. That's no joke. And while it was during the stage of simplicity, she's grateful because it gave her this knowledge and familiarity that she's been able to carry with her since. Yeah. Did you say a phone book? I'm sorry, you opened the phone book? Yeah. So the gift of boy, you were, so I won't tell people how old you were, but you were in that young adult phase of life, moving to a new city, and the church became a place of kind of deep relational connection, many of which still exist to this day for you. Yeah. That's a gift for sure. Yes, Stephanie.
I grew up in church and I went to Wheaton College, which is supposed to be this bastion of Christianity.
Yeah.
And I had a couple props that said things that were different than what I grew up with in my mind.
Yes. Yes.
And they were saying different things.
Right. Stephanie going to a Christian school, after growing up in a Christian home and hearing things from a couple of professors at university that just blew your mind. Yeah. Because they weren't in alignment. And I think often when we're growing up, we imagine that whatever version of Christianity we have received is like the version. There are other versions, we're blown away when we encounter that, whenever that happens. Yeah, thanks. Well, it's good to just think about our stories, think about your story. What we're also going to do here today is invite some people to share their story. And so would you help me welcome Alayna and Terra and Audrey up here this morning? Welcome, you three. Hi. It is a thing of, I say this every week, and I mean it every week, it is a thing of courage to be up here. And so thank you for being willing to do that. I think I convinced them to do this because I said you won't have to do it alone. Like the three of you can do it, and you can offer cover for each other, and if one person has an answer, I think that worked, right? Is that part of why you said yes, maybe? No. I wanted to, well, maybe I'll save that for the end about why I wanted to ask these students to share. And it's not just these three. I would have loved to have asked any three, and other students look out in future years, you may be asked. I asked these three because they're in this period of transition having just graduated, if you didn't know, and moving on after high school to other things. And it's such a obviously significant moment in life, and our culture certainly elevates this moment as it should. And so, given where they are on this kind of threshold, I thought it might be really interesting for us to just hear from them about what their faith journey has been like. And so that's what we're going to do this morning, is let you guys share a little bit of that. And I told them share as much or as little as they want, so this could be like 6 minutes, or it could be a half an hour. We're going to find out, right? We're going to find out. Why don't we start by having each of you share what we were talking about, life stages, so kind of your teenage years. What church or faith or spirituality or Christianity meant to you when you look back, and you can go back further if you'd like, in those last 5-ish or so years or something like that? What would you say your spirituality and your spiritual journey has included and been like?
I'd say that it's been a roller coaster. I've experienced some really uplifting moments, like with youth group.
Yeah.
When youth group was really strong, my faith was really strong. But then at times it felt like I was being pushed into attending church rather than just going out of genuine desire to be there. And it made me it was difficult to feel fully engaged in church.
Yeah. Boy, from the parent side, I can tell you this is a tension parents feel, at least parents I know, of like, how much do you make your child do certain things? And obviously, the older you get, the more autonomy and responsibility and all those things you should have. So to hear it from your side, though, is interesting. Yeah. So a roller coaster. Yeah? Ups and downs. Fair. Yeah. Okay.
I think for me, I grew up in church. I was definitely a kid of church. It was so fun.
Phew.
I loved coming to church. I would see all my friends. But slowly as the years went on, like it kind of wasn't as much of a priority, whether it was soccer games or vacations or COVID. Like it just kind of faded away a little bit. And then in 2019, I went to Uganda for the first time when I was 13. And that was kind of eye-opening, or very eye-opening, but it kind of shook everything up. That's the first time that, like, I truly walked away from faith. I was mad, and I was confused, and I still don't have all the answers, but I walked away, and I didn't come back until this past September when I had a really hard year, and I felt really alone, and I was kind of grasping for any friends that I could get. So I found a couple friends that invited me to a youth group, and I went with them, and it was great, and it kickstarted my faith until it wasn't. It was a very large church with views that I did not agree with, and that was the first time this past winter that my faith was really challenged, and I took on the challenge instead of walking away. So while I don't go to that youth group anymore, I did like start doing my own things in my faith, and it led me to want to learn more and to want to grow, and I want to figure out if like faith is really where I want to be and what I want to pursue. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so you're right in the thick of it. And have been in the thick of it, yeah. It sounds like Uganda, and if you didn't catch Audrey, I think 3 weeks ago now, she shared about her most recent trip there, and you can find that on our YouTube channel. But it sounds like that trip was a movement from simplicity to complexity. We haven't used that language, I don't know necessarily before, but that's, listening to you say that, and maybe even a bit from complexity to perplexity. There was some shifting that was happening there because of that. And that often happens when we encounter people who are not like us. Travel does this. Going to college does this. When whatever our kind of group was, we expand beyond it, it can be quite unnerving and beautiful, but both. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, Tara?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities with both of theirs. I think like if I look at the last 5 years overall, it's a lot of the similar, like a lot of ups and downs. And then, but when I look at like where that kind of started, I think it was like around 2020-ish, which was when I was starting to get involved with a lot of like social justice work and like youth climate movements, and then eventually like political organizing and stuff, which was like the beginning of a lot of growth and change in my life, just in general. But I think that that was also kind of where I started to run into a lot of tensions with my faith, because I was seeing like the role of the church in the world more than I like really ever had before, and like not only on a like national scale that I was seeing within my like political organizing, but also on a personal scale with the relationships that I was in at my school, and then especially in those social movements with the people that I was with, which is a very diverse group of people, like ethnically and religiously, and a lot of like queer people. So just seeing like the harm of the church like very firsthand was kind of like one of the like a really like a moment of a lot of tension. And then I think there was another piece of it where like so much of how I wanted to act in the world and like why I'd gotten involved with those movements had been related to my faith. And then there was so much going on in 2020 with the election, and like that was like the Black Lives Matter movement. There was so much where I felt like how I wanted to show up in the world was not connecting with what I was hearing from the church, because there was so much of like, we just need to love your neighbor and just, you know, be a good neighbor, love people, and it felt really empty to me. And so I was just like facing these really big issues for the first time and not feeling like I was connecting with, like my faith didn't feel like the path forward in the way that it had been. And so I think I kind of, I don't say like I walked away from it because it was never like a conscious thing, but I think I was just slowly distancing myself from it because it felt like too hard to engage with until like kind of this year. And I can talk about that. We might talk about that more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Thank you for being honest. You could get up here and say, it's been great. Next question, you know. But you're being honest with us, which I know this group always appreciates. And even though your stories are different, of course, there is this similarity of you each. I don't think, if I'm hearing correctly, none of your stories is like, again, a straight line to say what I said earlier. Roller coaster, distance, returning, right? Which, I don't know, does that feel familiar to anybody else out there? No? No? Oh, good, yes, right? This is normal. This is normal. But I think it would be easy for us to assume that, oh, look at you guys. You're such put together young women, and you're going off to do things, and wow, you were involved here, and you certainly must have just had a wonderful, smooth experience. And you're letting us into the fact that maybe it hasn't been, right? Appreciate that. You've talked a little bit about this, but maybe just to kind of circle back or allow you to say something else if you'd like to. When you realized that the world was more complex, what happened when that happened? Were you surprised that ideas of faith or the Bible were not maybe quite as straightforward as you had thought when you were younger? How did that feel? What did you think? Yeah. Is there anything you'd want to say in addition to that?
I think that raised not being sheltered really helped me see different perspectives. I have friends that are atheists. I work at Chick-fil-A, so I have friends that are really conservative. And I've been to, I think it was like a Dutch Reformed church or Dutch Protestant church. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But all those people seem to think that they have faith figured out, and it's all different. So what is actually true and which one of us is not right? And so I think that it made me realize that it's just more complex. Like everyone has their own ideas on it.
Yeah.
and no one has it actually figured out like
Yeah.
they think they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate that.
I think for me, it was both within the Bible and within the world. Your flash is on.
That's a good. That's helpful.
Also,
We need help like that, so thank you. Yep.
so within the Bible, it was all these little stories, and it was kind of just like
Still on.
Yep. It was it was fun little stories to read about, like a woman that walked to a well, or someone
Yeah,
that
yeah.
touched the little robe. Like
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
kind of like a cute little fun book. And then within the church, it was like a place that felt like home. Like I could just kind of show up and go downstairs and play with friends.
Right. Right.
And then the Bible turned into war, and it turned into death, and it turned into harm. And then the church turned into some place that didn't feel like people were welcome,
Right.
and some place that I started seeing the pain it was causing for other people. And I think that's definitely where I went from black and white to, oh crap, like this isn't making sense anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, mine's pretty similar. I do think, like, I felt like I was kind of prepared for that. I feel like it had been talked about so much here and, like, within, like, how I'd grown up and stuff that in some ways I was, like, prepared for that. But I feel like it was less of, like, that, like, individual struggle and more of, like, realizing, like, the role of, like, that my faith couldn't be, like, its own thing. Like, it was a part of this broader institution.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the hardest thing. And then I feel like it was kind of like, as much as I like kind of wanted to like sit in that tension and like find a way to go forward, it was almost like I was scared that if I like really asked those questions and like thought about it, that I was gonna like fully walk away. And so I think that's why for a while I like kind of just distanced myself and was like, I'll just like be a part of this from a distance, because I don't want to like, really find my way through it.
Right. Right. Like totally understandable, like way of navigating that tension. Yeah. Each of you though have found, like somehow you've found a way to ultimately wrestle or to face this a little bit more, like a little more head on than just keeping it at a distance. What has that experience been like to face the tension, to step into the tension or the dissonance? I mean, the obvious answer is that it's hard. Would you say anything more than that? I don't know.
I think it was scary. It was like kind of a jump into the deep end to like, who do I trust to tell me what I should think about this? Who should I go to? Because who I was going to, it wasn't lining up anymore. There was a talk at the youth group that I was going to about sexuality and gender, and that morning before the youth group, I knew the theme going into it. So I talked to Chris and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should go or if I should just walk away now. And I went, and it was scary and it was painful. And I think I care really deeply and I feel really deeply for other people. So sitting there in that room just felt it felt like a not safe place. And when I asked a question, it was met with a lot of hostility. And that just made it feel like it wasn't the place for me, but it also made it feel like it was time to ask the questions and to truly find my way through it without those beliefs having to shatter behind me.
I think that walking away is always easier than facing your problems head on, but walking away doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah, I think I was kind of like, I think it is kind of what you said earlier about this year being in like so much transition and there was like so much changing that I feel like I was feeling really unsettled and like there were a lot, and so it just felt like it was something I had to revisit and like actually work my way through instead of just like leaving it kind of with like loose ends, kind of. And so that has been like, felt good to kind of like revisit a little bit, even though it's, yeah, a lot of things to think through and
Yeah.
sit with. But.
Yeah. Is there, as you look back on these last number of years, are there things, or is there a thing from, your teenage time that you would be grateful for, that you want to kind of take with you as you move into whatever is next for you? And maybe also on the flip side, if you have anything that you want to leave behind.
Mine's kind of a both and.
Okay, perfect. Yep.
To sum it up, community, both taking and leaving. Obviously, like, this is a home, and leaving is going to be hard. And I'm thankful for the community I got to grow up with, for all the kids that I got to grow up around in church, and for all the people that made me feel loved and safe. But I also know that church communities have made people feel the opposite. And so I'm ready to leave a lot of the exclusivity behind. I'm ready to find a place that not only feels like a community, but feels like a community that's always accepting and always wants everyone to feel the community and doesn't want it to be just this tiny little community that can only be this one group.
I think one of the things I'm grateful for from growing up here, and then also just like within youth group and like my family is, and I kind of said this before, is that I do feel like I was really taught to like lean into like the non-dualism and like hold the both and. Like that's something that I feel like I've always kind of, even though it's like hard to like when you're younger, like hard to like know what that means, I feel like that's something that was always like taught and has really helped me in the past year or so as I've been working through like a lot of things. So I'm grateful for that because I think that's what's kind of allowed me to get like where I am. And then I think what's been really cool about the last few months is I've been kind of reading books and like talking with people and stuff, is that I feel a lot less pressure because I'm kind of like rediscovering this on my own terms and like what feels good. And so that leaving behind like the pressure of like how I need to fit into this, I think has been good. And that's what I kind of want to leave behind.
Yeah.
I think community, like going off what Audrey said, I've been into churches where you walk in and you're not allowed to talk, but I've been in churches where you walk in and everyone greets you with a hug. And so I think that I want to leave behind like the first one and like more like welcome in the second one. Like a more welcoming community.
Yeah, appreciate that. So kind of with those things in mind of what you're going to try and carry with you, what you might want to leave behind, I'm going to ask the impossible question. It really is. And that is like, as you stand at this threshold, and all three of you are moving away from Grand Rapids, right? Chicago, Phoenix, and I don't remember what city it's in. Oxford. I didn't know that. Miami is in Oxford. Okay, that's confusing. Okay. Oxford, Ohio. You're all leaving here, and so you stand at this moment, and I know I've talked with some of you about like what's next. The branch won't be there with you in the same way. Do you have a maybe not even, you don't know what's next, but do you have a hope for what might be next when you think about your spiritual journey and when you think about community, since that's something you've all mentioned here today? Any thoughts about what you hope for that you might be able to be a part of in this next chapter?
I'm going to a Christian college, which I never, like...
Surprised?
Surprise. 8 years ago, I would not have pictured that. Anyways, I think that it's going to be an environment for me to deepen my faith because it's a Christian college, but it isn't pushed on you. You don't have to do any of the things. They're there for you. So it's an opportunity to grow instead of being forced to grow. And I think that'll be really good for me. Another thing is on Sundays, they don't have church. Okay. So you're supposed to go out and find your own church in the area. And I think that that'll be really good for me, just to explore different things and see what church I like and which ones don't align with me.
Right. Yeah. That's great.
Honestly, I have no clue.
That's right.
I don't know. I, this year, have kind of pushed, I kind of bullied Chris into taking us out for breakfast every Sunday, but
It was hardly bullying. No.
I've pushed to like try and figure out how I can deepen my faith enough that I don't lose it when I move away. But envisioning, at least for the first semester, I want to deepen my relationship with God. I'm not sure if that'll mean going to a church on Sunday morning. I'm not sure if that'll mean going to a youth group in town, or if that'll mean just on my own for a little while.
Yeah.
But I do, in some way, hope to continue. But I don't really know what it'll look like.
Yeah, which is fair. We know I feel like I know that whatever it is, if it is a community, it will be a community that, as you and Alayna have now said, and I know Tara would too, welcomes everyone, right? Is justice-oriented in things socially related, but also in just terms of human relations, right? That will have to be true for all three of you, I suspect. Yeah. Tara, you have any thoughts?
Very similar to what Audrey said. Yeah, I don't really know. I think I want to be, this maybe is going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but we've talked about, like, on our Sunday mornings, one of the things that you've said that has been, I've thought about a lot is the action and contemplation, like, model, which is, like, Richard Rohr, I think. Yep. And so as I think about, like, what my practices will look like, especially in, like, I'm going to Chicago, like, there's so much there, like, it feels like probably a very hard environment to, like, navigate. And I don't know that I really want to be in, like, a church right now. So I feel like finding those practices, like, within my own life and kind of developing that on my own is, like, kind of the next step, but I don't really know from there and what that exactly looks like.
Yeah. Appreciate the honesty again, right? And who knows what any of our future holds, but we do carry hopes, right, maybe. And thanks for sharing those things with us. Any final thoughts you want to share? Something you haven't said today that you want to say? Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to give them one more chance. Can we just thank them for sharing with us this morning? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Of course. Then, yes, Jeff, hold on. If you're going to go off on one of your little rants here, you should be Mike. I know, I'm joking, but I do want people online to be able to hear.
That last question you asked as a parent is somewhat terrifying. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, the last thing I want for my daughter, and I'm sure all parents would agree with this, is for them to go somewhere and get involved in something like toxic. And then I thought about the example that this place has set for them for the last 18 years, and I feel so much better. Because I know, because of this place, that if the three of them walk into a toxic situation, they're going to know it's toxic. They've seen what a healthy community looks like. And so as a parent, thank all of you for that.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. I knew it wasn't a rant, and it was even better than that. Yeah. As parents, you feel a lot of things when you send your child into that next chapter, and one of them, I think, Jeff, right, easily can be fear, for any number of reasons. And one of my kids is sitting here today, and so I'll just tell you, I'm often wondering, like, did I do it right? I've tried to navigate how I raise my kids, of course, in this way. And not only am I thinking about that just as a parent, but I am this pastor, and that creates this weird dynamic. And so I have plenty of that fear, too. Did I do enough? Did I do the right things? And thank you for sharing that thought, because it doesn't mean that these young people are not going to be free of struggle. Of course, you're going to experience struggle, as you have already, but they have been given something, and they each spoke to that through their time here, and they carry that with them. And so thank you. I'll just echo what you said to everyone as well. Thank you for helping make this place what it is. I also wanted to have these three incredible people speak, because the church, I think, I'm just like using capital C here, I think the church generally, by and large, explicitly, probably not often, but implicitly says to young people, your voice doesn't matter. I think that is like one of the most tragic mistakes ever. When you get older, we'll let you, do whatever, be in leadership, have a true voice. I'm not saying the branches figured out how to do this. In fact, I'm kind of saying this now to challenge us. I think we've got to figure out, or keep working at, how to give a larger voice to people who are like the next generation, who are next up. And certainly part of me wishes the three of you were sticking around, because I'd hand you the microphone as often as you wanted it, metaphorically and literally. So I want to challenge all of us who are older than this generation to be thinking about that. We've talked about it as stewards, on and off over quite a bit of time here. How do you not just pay lip service to this? And obviously we haven't figured it out. But I think if a church isn't willing to pass the baton, essentially, then you know its trajectory. The young people will leave, and that's not the end of the world to have them go. But I'd love to be a part of something where, again, the baton is passed, and as an older person, I get to use whatever energy and whatever minuscule amount of wisdom I've obtained to empower the next generation. I'm rambling a little bit now. I'm, kind of thinking off the top of my head, but that's part of why I wanted to have these three as well shared today, so that their voice could be elevated and we could hear from them directly about what their experience has been like here. So again, thanks to you three for doing that. I wonder what that stirred up for you. Maybe it made you think about your own journey in some way. I suspect some part of what they shared resonates with you, is even familiar to you. We all are moving through this journey, and none of us are moving on a straight line. And all of us need each other. We need other people on the journey. We cannot do it alone. It is a roller coaster. It has seasons of hardship and difficulty. We need each other. And that's one of the things that we remember when we come around this table. We remember that we need each other. And not just that we need each other, but that we are actually bound to each other. And so we're going to share this meal together today. Bread, many pieces, but from one loaf. Many cups, but coming from one cup, if you will. These visual, very real things that help us remember, oh yeah, I'm a part of something. I'm connected to something. I belong to something. And we celebrate that communion with each other today. I'd love to have a few people who would be willing to help serve this morning, as we quite often normally do. We'll have a station up front and a station in the back. Would anybody be willing to volunteer to help serve? Amen, thanks. Why don't you take one of the breads and head to the back, my friend? Who else would be willing? Thank you. Nolan? Beautiful. You two want to stay up here? Or you can go back with Eamon. Good. We get a little swapperoo. I like it. Okay, good. We did it. Doesn't matter. We can make people go whatever way we want. You can just stand next to each other, yeah. We're in charge, exactly. It's the gift of volunteering. These gifts are for each of us. Young and old, wayward wanderers and people who feel at home, those who have deep questions that are rattling around, and those who feel really deeply rooted in this moment. All of us are invited to this table to come, to take, to eat, to receive the gift that it is. So we invite you to do exactly that, the gifts of God for the people of God. Amen.
Teach us your ways. Teach us your ways as we learn from one another. Learn to love each other. Teach us your ways. Teach us to give. Teach us to give. Give ourselves for one another. Learn to love each other. Teach us to give. Teach us to read. Teach us to read. Let us weep with one another. Learn to love each other. Teach us to wait.
The body of Christ broken for you, given as a gift to remind you many things, one of which is that we come together sharing this communion with one another. Let's take and eat to remember that. And again, many grapes from many vineyards into one cup. So are we. Many people gathered together into one body. Let's take and drink. We'll pass this little basket around that you can put your cup in, if you'd like. And to close this morning, I want to invite us to listen to a song that we listen to / sing / meditate on, consider. A song we sing often. It is called Make Me an Instrument of Peace. And it's going to play as a video here in a moment. You are welcome to actually sing along if you'd like. I'll probably be doing that. I really enjoy the song and like to sing to it. You might, though, prefer to just listen and reflect on the words. It's kind of our call. It's our way of going out this week to be these kinds of people. So let's sing or listen as this song is played here.
Lord, make me an instrument of peace, an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is darkness, let me sow light. For in the giving we shall receive, and in the dying we're given life. Lord, make me an instrument of peace, an instrument of peace. Lord, make me an instrument of peace, an instrument of peace. Where there is sorrow, let me sow hope. Where there is doubt, let me sow faith. Where there is injury, your pardon give, your consolation to those in pain. Lord, make me an instrument of peace, an instrument of peace. Lord, make me an instrument of peace, an instrument of peace.
As we prepare to leave this morning, and I'll send you with this blessing. And it's right from that song, may you be an instrument of peace this week. Where there's sorrow, may you sow joy. Where there's doubt, may you sow faith. Where there is pain and injury, may you sow compassion and consolation. Be those people this week. Amen. Thanks for being here, everybody. Good to see you. Have a great week.